So in breaking news, the economy created a pitiful, you won't even believe this, the economy stinks. What timing? What timing? 4 days before the election, they have among the worst numbers ever in history. Nobody's ever heard. They did 12,000 jobs. Normally you're 250, 300,000, 400,000. They did 12. Think of it, 12,000 jobs. And it's hundreds of thousands of jobs less than it should be. Think. Because they're pathetic. They don't know anything. These people don't know anything. She's a very low IQ person. We don't need a low IQ individual. We just had that for 4 years. We don't need this. But those numbers are so low, they're almost disqualifying. The only thing good about the numbers I'm going to give you now are that it's great to run against the people that created those numbers because it's terrible. And just think, a few months ago, they fraudulently claimed, remember, 3 months ago, 818,000 jobs. It was a fraud. Everything they do is a fraud. And then they go after people that aren't frauds. They're a fraud. The whole operation stinks. But they created 818,000 fake jobs. And they thought they'd get away with it, and a whistleblower blew the whistle. And they blew the whistle. They thought they were going to announce. They call it a correction. That's a hell of a correction, by the way. That will be the world's biggest correction in history. What do you think, Ron Johnson? That's the biggest correction. Corrections are meant for like 700 jobs, not almost 1 million jobs. But now they've just revised the past jobs number, right? Last month. And they revised it downward by 112,000 fake jobs. So these guys are playing fast and loose. These are crooked people we're dealing with. The people we're running against are crooked as hell. So that's almost 1 million fake jobs. And I think it's something that Congress ought to look into, really. They ought to look at who the hell ever heard of these numbers? And they wanted to revise them after the election. Could you imagine if you lost the election and then 2 days later, we've revised the numbers downward, 1 million jobs? Nobody's ever heard of it, but we thank you, Mr. Whistleblower. Some whistleblowers are very good. Kamala's failed economic agenda wiped out nearly 30,000 private sector jobs and nearly 50,000 manufacturing jobs in just the last month. Do you believe this? Nobody's ever heard of these numbers. Even I know they're incompetent, but I thought they were sort of riding along a little bit on what we built. With almost 100,000 manufacturing jobs killed since the beginning of the year. 100, that's a lot. 150,000, these are all the numbers coming out of the so-called government. Great government we have. 150,000 Americans joined the unemployment rolls last month. This is like a depression. And there's nothing, no event. I think they're trying to blame it on the hurricane. No, that was, a relatively small area. No, not the hurricane. They're the hurricane. And nearly 250,000 people dropped out of the labor force, which is almost unheard of. No, these are the worst numbers anybody's ever heard of. The data shows that 100%, listen to this part, of all new jobs, net job gains in the past year have gone to illegal migrants. And the jobs were taken from African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers. I don't think the unions are too happy about this. But I told you this was going to happen. It was inevitable. They're letting millions and millions of people flood into the country. And the African American population, if you see these numbers now, they're going to release them. But I think maybe, Ron, you should try and get them early because they're really bad. They have taken so many jobs away from African Americans, less from Hispanic, but that's going to catch up. But the African American job picture is unbelievable. And we had it going so good. But they've come in illegally and they've taken the jobs, and people that have had jobs for 20 years and good jobs, and they raised a family, they had a little house and everything nice, and they've now lost their job to illegal migrants that have poured in through the open border policy of that stupid person. Kamala's inflation nightmare has, think of this, has cost the typical American family $30,000. Think of that one. Higher prices because the inflation's just raised. And you know what started? When they played around with my energy. I had no inflation. We had the greatest energy we've ever had. I was going to have it 4 times higher by now. And we're going to do that, but we got a little bit of a delay and we were going to have it 4 times higher. We were going to take care of Asia. We were going to take care of Europe. We're going to make a fortune, start paying down debt. We have $35 trillion in debt. We're going to lower your taxes. I gave you the largest tax cut in the history of our country and the largest regulation cuts. And we were able to do more.